What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Sidelined NFL Week 16. Hope everyone had a really nice Christmas with the family. Now it's time to get back at it. Back to the work week. Back to Sideline. Remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let's get right into it. My 3 biggest takeaways from this week of NFL games. My number 1 takeaway is the Patriots need an overhaul on offense. I mean, this week was embarrassing. Another embarrassing week for the Patriots. After last week, one of the worst losses ever, they had another terrible loss from Andre Stevenson. Fumble. They had a chance to win the game. Terrible fumble. And they just need an overhaul. It's clear it wasn't going to work from fucking training camp. All the best players on the team, you could hear them in interviews and training camp. After press conferences, they have no confidence in the play calling. They have no confidence in Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. It's obviously Belichick's fault. They need a new OC. They need a new quarterbacks coach. They frankly need more weapons on offense. And I'm going to talk about it with Sam. They might need a new quarterback too. They need a whole overhaul because what they are doing is not working at all. And frankly, in this day and age of quarterbacks and throwing the football, it's a fucking joke. All right, my second takeaway. The Vikings are the worst 12-3 team I think I've ever seen in my entire life. There is not a more fraudulent team and more fraudulent quarterback who on paper looks good and has good numbers than Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. All of their wins are close games, and frankly, not versus great teams. I mean, the Giants are so-so. They were kind of lucky to pull this one out. Their field goal kicker, he made a 61-yard field goal, Greg Joseph. And a lot of their wins have kind of been like this. The 2 big teams they played that they're going to see in the playoffs, they got shellacked by the Cowboys. I think it was 40-3. And they got manhandled by the Eagles. And those are the kind of teams you're going to see in the playoffs. They were lucky to beat Indy. They were lucky to win yesterday. On paper, they're very good, and Cousins have good numbers, but I don't think anyone expects them to make a deep playoff run. Very fraudulent. My third takeaway, there are 7 teams that can win the Super Bowl. 7 teams. It's the Bills, it's the Bengals, it's the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, and the 49ers. Yes, I said the Buccaneers. I think everyone would agree with me. All 6 of the other teams are in a league above their own. They're all in tier 1, kind of. All of those are elite teams. I throw the Buccaneers in there because even though they've looked terrible and been bad all season, I mean, you've seen it too much. You've seen the movie so many times. You cannot count out Tom Brady. I don't care how bad he looks. When he gets in the playoffs, when the game's on the line, it's a different story. They're going to probably play Dallas in the first round, who Dallas always chokes. And then if the Buccaneers get hot, Tom Brady, who knows what could happen. But those are the only teams I think that can win the Super Bowl. I'm not even throwing Minnesota in there. I don't think they can win it with Kirk Cousins. So I would expect to see one of those 7 teams hoist the Lombardi at the end of the season. With that, we're going to bring in everyone's favorite segment, Top 5 Games with everyone's favorite person, Sam Reed. Sam, how you doing?
I'm good, Matt.
Sam, you have a nice Christmas?
Yeah, it was lovely. How was yours?
It was good. It was nice family event. Were you watching the games on Christmas, getting ready for Sideline?
I got to say, it was a nice touch to have NFL action this weekend compared to NBA.
Okay. Oh, so you're watching NFL over NBA?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, that's enough of this. All right, let's get into the first game, NFL. We got Giants, Vikings. Sam, this was a really close game. Vikings ended up winning 27-24. The Vikings won another close game, something they've done all season. And Greg Joseph made a 61-yard field goal to win it right before overtime. Sam, are the Vikings frauds in your mind?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. What they are doing right now with their record in close games, they're 11-0, Matt. That is an NFL record in one-score games this year.
Crazy.
So they are putting up like an unbelievable pace right now. It can't be sustainable. Their defense looks awful. They probably have one of the worst secondaries in football right now.
Yeah, they let us some big holes.
Kirk Cousins, he just doesn't know what he's doing out there. Most of his passes are either behind his receivers or they're literally to the opposing players because, like, he's thrown how many interceptions over the last couple weeks?
He's thrown quite a few.
Yeah. I mean, he is just missing his guys. He's missing his targets, and it's not a good recipe for winning football.
Yeah, Sam, I don't believe in this Minnesota team. I feel like the Vikings as a franchise, they always choke. You know what I mean? They always have pretty good teams, and they always come up just short. And they're playing an average Giants team. They're going to play far better teams in the play. I would, under no circumstances, bet the Vikings to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be going up against some tough teams in this NFC conference. And I would say if, they get exploited, obviously, because they do commit a lot of miscues, especially over the past couple weeks. Kirk Cousins throwing interceptions, and not being able to hold on to the ball like Dalvin Cook fumbling, it's not going to pay dividends in the playoffs.
I will say, Sam, it's tempting, though. Like, because all the signs, like, point, it's like you think about that X, they look good. You think about, hitting them up, all the signs, but it's a bad idea, to bet on the Vikings. You just shouldn't do it.
It's kind of like, what is it, in Greek mythology, like the sirens or like Medusa, they look great.
Okay.
They look phenomenal, but then when you get up close to them, then you realize, oh, shit, they're actually like a mutant.
I have no idea what you're talking. I'm a history teacher, too.
That's good.
All right, next game. Patriots-Bengals. Sam, this was really, really bad. I mean, we watched this game together. And the Patriots they were losing 22-0. They somehow miraculously came back, and they had a chance to win the game in the red zone at the very end. Ramondre Stevenson fumbles, very un-Patriots-like. But you know what? This season, it's very Patriots-like. Fucking Belichick, the whole fucking team, they're stupid. This is a stupid team. Sam, is this the most embarrassing Patriots season of our lifetime?
I mean, it's just incredible, Matt. Week in and week out, they just keep finding ways to lose games in very different ways. Like, for instance, last week with the toss back to Mac Jones, losing that game, and then this week, Stevenson again, involved in the final play of the game that cost them the game, fumbles near the goal line. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
They were so lucky just to be in that position, and they blew it. And they've been doing things that are un-Patriot-like all season. They've been making bad turnovers. They've been committing stupid penalties and just making stupid plays. I mean, that's such an un-Belichick, like, his teams don't, like, do shit like that, make stupid mistakes like that. And I don't know if he's checked out, like, if he's just riding out for the Shula record, or just the team is just not good, or I think or they don't respect the coaches. I think it's kind of all of it.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of everything. Like, it's the players are undisciplined. They're not buying into what Belichick and his crew have to offer. You can see that Mac Jones especially, he is visibly frustrated with the coaching staff. Like, he will just nod off and, shout angrily at Patricia most games.
Well, how do you respect Matt Patricia? The guy wears a pencil in his ear. He's working on a fucking tablet. I mean, what a fucking tool bag he is.
Well, Matt, to start off, he's not even a fucking OC.
He sucks.
He's a defensive coordinator. During his time in New England, his first stint, he was a defensive coordinator. Then he went to Detroit. Look how that went.
Not good.
And now he's back here fucking calling offensive plays. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, he left Detroit. They got better. Joe Judge leaves the Giants. They got better. Belichick brings them here. We get worse. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Giants step backwards. It's not looking good for Pats Nation. Yet somehow we have a chance to make the playoffs if we win the next two.
I hope they don't deserve to make the playoffs. Well,
obviously we don't.
Yeah.
Like, the team is just mediocre at best.
At best. They're stupid, too. Hard to watch. It's very frustrating. I like bitching about it, though. All right. We have Dallas, Eagles. This is an NFC East game. Big game for Dallas. They kind of need to prove it versus the Eagles. Dallas was able to pull it out late. Minshew, he looked pretty good. He did have a bad turnover later in the game. So did Miles Sanders. They had two costly turnovers in the fourth quarter. That was ultimately the difference. Now, Sam, even though Jalen Hurts didn't play this game, the Eagles starting quarterback, does this game prove anything to you with the Cowboys or the Eagles?
So I would say for the Eagles, they're definitely capable without Jalen Hurts to, play winning football. Minshew looked very good out there. He did have a couple of really bad plays, like towards the end, like you mentioned, that pick that he threw. But no, this offense is definitely a juggernaut. They got a great O-line. They do have the capabilities of running all over teams, except this Dallas team does have a good front on the defensive end, so they weren't able to establish the run this game. But guys like Devontae Smith really proving himself.
He's a baller.
Second half of the year. I mean, he's just been balling lately, and trying to cover two number one wide receivers is impossible, right?
Yeah. No, they got 2 ones. I mean, honestly, Sam, I think this is more about Philly because they went into Dallas on the road, division matchup with a backup quarterback, and they honestly probably should have won if Miles Sanders doesn't fumble and Minshew doesn't throw that pick. I mean, I think they were going to win. And they're going to have Hurts back, hopefully, for the playoffs. I think that's the key. If Hurts is back healthy and the layoff, because if he misses a lot of time, he comes back, he's rusty. That's going to impact them. And this is a playoff team, one of the best teams in the league. So I would be encouraged if I was a Philly fan that if Hurts doesn't miss time, you'd be okay with Minshew.
Yeah. Also, Dallas looks really good. I mean, obviously, it's like you said earlier, it's just all for show because come playoff time, they don't produce. But as of right now, Dak and CeeDee Lamb is a great connection. Like, ever since Dak came back to this team, it seems like this offense is just a complete juggernaut right now. It's clicking on all cylinders.
I feel like Dak's kind of a fraud. I don't know. I feel like I said it earlier. I feel like the Cowboys, it's like the fucking Judith. Adam and Eve, like the tree, the apple. It looks so good, and you want to just take it, but you can't trust it. You know what I mean? I just feel like you can't never trust Dallas. It's very tempting. It's tempting because they look good. They have a lot of good players, but it's ultimately you take that. It's bad news, Sam. You take that apple.
Well,
okay. All right. Next game, we have Raiders-Steelers. This was a terrible Saturday Night Football game, Sam. It was very low scoring, 13-10. It was close. Classic Derek Carr fashion. He throws 3 picks against an average Pittsburgh team. Steelers win an ugly game. Not a ton to take away in the current, as for the season. I wanted to talk about more the future of each franchise, Sam. Do the Raiders need to move on from Derek Carr?
I think they should definitely look elsewhere because he has not given them a chance to, play winning football over the last couple years he's been under the team's tenure. I would say they definitely need to spend some draft capital and definitely get a QB for the future. I mean, he should stick around because he is a good quarterback. He does have some good attributes.
I think he blows. I don't like him.
Why do you say that?
He throws 3 picks against the Steelers. I mean, this is a game.
It's tough weather, man. Did you see it's snowing?
Oh, boo, fucking who? Josh Allen.
I want to see you go out there.
All right, well, I'm not in the NFL.
Exactly.
All
so
right.
your point's not valid.
Okay. Oh, Sam, I'm not getting paid $25 million, So I think if I'm getting paid $25, I'll suck it up and I'll have a good. I mean, this is a bad Pittsburgh team, Sam. And Derek Carr goes and throws 3 picks because he fucking sucks.
They're actually very great on defense, believe it or not.
You think this is a great Steelers defense?
Ever since T.J. Watt came back in the lineup.
They're 6-8.
It's because T.J. Watt was hurt half the fucking season. To start the year, they were one of the worst teams in football.
Sam, I think you're wrong.
Matt, just go back. Look at the fucking...
All right. I mean, I'm looking at the record. I feel like the record doesn't lie. All right. Well,
whatever.
I know you're going to ride it. All right. Whatever. All right. You're going to ride Derek Carr fine. I think he sucks. I think he blows. And I think they have all the talent in the world. And they have literally every weapon on offense. And they scored 10 points. I blame the quarterback. I think they'll never go anywhere with him. As for the Steelers, what do you think about Pickett?
I don't know. I haven't really seen anything to, really make me go all in on him.
Off the page,
I mean, he does have some talent with his legs. He can certainly run, and he does have, good control with his arm. I'd say he has one of the best arms out of this draft class.
Okay.
But just what I've seen so far, him being able to make certain plays over the field, to Deontay Johnson, whatnot.
Yeah.
He's making throws that just aren't there. He's missing receivers by a lot. I mean, that was a good throw.
That should have been picked off, though.
It was a decent throw, but it should have been picked off. But he hasn't really impressed me over his tenure so far in Pittsburgh. But we'll see. I'll give him another year.
I agree. Hasn't impressed me, but you drafted him in the first round. You got to give him at least another year.
Yeah.
All right, and we will move into the last game. This was on Christmas Day, 1 o'clock. We watched this. Watched it with my grandfather, Sam. Me and Angelo watched this game. Packers-Dolphins. Packers squeak one out. The Packers are rolling. They win their 3rd in a row. Tua throws 3 picks. The Dolphins are sliding. They have not been good. Tua's been struggling a lot. Sam, are the Dolphins fucked? And also, can the Packers make the playoffs?
Well, Matt, I would say that Miami has looked better in recent time. That is their 4th game in a row that they've dropped, believe it or not. I would say they had all control in the first half, with Tua only throwing the ball 9 times for completions and had 229 yards, which is pretty impressive, but at the same time, not really, because they were fueled by 2 big plays to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
So you think the stats may be a little misleading?
Yeah, it's a little misleading because you saw what happened in the second half. Matt LaFleur and the coaching staff made some adjustments. They held this Dolphins team to 0 points in the second half. They were able to make the Dolphins turn the ball over 3 times, Tua's 3 picks. And, it was just a fascinating thing to see because, people thought that this Miami team was a complete juggernaut, should be killing teams all the time. But as you can see, they are mortal.
They are mortal. No, I think I think a lot of it's Tua, man. He's looked a little shaky these past couple weeks, and I feel like his arm, he made some throws that he definitely should have made. He's missing passes. and he's supposed to be this like accurate passer. I mean, a couple of his picks were his fault, you know?
Yeah, he's trying to thread the needle a little bit too much, and that last pick that he threw, it wasn't even close.
I'm not sold on Tua.
He tried to fit it into Gesicki over like two different guys, but literally he could not because there was no room. He'd have to throw the perfect pass, and in that situation he didn't.
Yeah, if I'm the Dolphins, I might look into other options next season. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
What do you think about Green Bay? They got a shot to make the playoffs?
I would say Green Bay has an outside shot looking in. They've kind of had a couple of things go their ways. Like, for instance, in this game, they were able to shut down this Miami team who could have easily scored, 6 points in the second half.
Yeah.
But they got a couple of turnovers, key turnovers, the Tua picks. But as far as Green Bay's chances going forward, they got a couple of tough games coming up.
Lions, Vikings.
The Lions are no joke. They got one of the best offenses in football, in my opinion. So, and Green Bay doesn't really have a great secondary, so it'd be interesting to see, especially because the Lions are hungry to get into the playoffs.
Lions are hungry. All right, that's all we got for top 5 games. We'll move on to everyone's favorite segment. It's Best Bets with Sam Reed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Best Bets this week. So here's how we stand after last week's slate of games. We are 4-7-1. We went 2-1 last week with the Niners and the Jaguars, but unfortunately the over didn't hit in the Kansas City Chiefs-Seattle game because the weather played a big factor and Seattle just couldn't get anything going, which was a doozy. But that's okay. We got a new slate of games this week, new chance to make some money, and, after the holidays, we're feeling good, and, who doesn't want to make some money this week, right? So before I get into this week's best bets, I just want to say a quick disclaimer that I am in no means a professional sports bettor, so please only bet money that you can afford to lose if you do tail these picks, but I don't recommend it, okay? So without further ado, let's get into it with my first best bet of Week 17. I have the Jaguars minus 4.5 against the Houston Texans at minus 110 odds. So what this means is if you threw $11 on this bet, it would return $10. So the reason why I like this bet is because the Jaguars are one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. They're going up against the Houston team that has looked good over the last couple weeks, but I don't believe it. I think it's a bit of false hope. The Texans have one of the worst rushing defenses in all of football. They give up the most yards per game in the NFL. I think Travis Etienne is going to have a big day on the ground, should rush for over 100. And once they establish the run, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have his way with this secondary as well. Even though the Texans do have a better secondary than most teams in the league, they are still kind of mid. So I believe Trevor Lawrence is going to have his way, and they're going to be able to put up a lot of points, and they should cover this 4.5 spread easily. All right, let's get into the next one. My second best bet of Week 17 is the Steelers on the money line against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the reason why I like the Steelers in this spot is because they're coming off a tough victory over the Raiders. It was a gritty game. The weather was brutal, but their defense really showed out. They were able to hold Josh Jacobs to 44 yards on the ground, which is a really hard thing to do. And the reason why I like the Steelers is because of their ability to hold teams, to be able to keep them in control of the rushing game. Because the Ravens are the second best rushing team in the NFL right now. And ever since Lamar Jackson went down, Tyler Huntley hasn't really been able to show off anything with his arm and his capability to turn games into points. So I would say, this bet is definitely one that I would consider a lot because the Steelers are going to shut down this Ravens offense, especially if they are able to keep J.K. Dobbins and Tyler Huntley from running all over them. Now, my third and final best bet of Week 17 is the Bengals on the money line at even odds. So this would be $10 to win $10. And the reason why I like this bet is because the Bengals have been hot recently. Joe Burrow and the offense has looked phenomenal over the past couple weeks. They've been averaging over 27 points. They've looked great. They don't really have any flaws in this offense. They're going up against a tough Bills team, which it looks like an uphill battle for them, especially when they lost their star offensive tackle, Lyle Collins. I feel like this line should definitely be a lot higher. It should be in the plus 140 range, probably by the end of the week, because I think a lot of guys are going to consider that losing the offensive tackle is going to be a big loss for this Bengals team, and keeping Joe Burrow, out of pressure situations, because this Bills pass rush is no joke. But I really like the Bengals in this spot. The Bills do have a weak secondary, and I think Joe Burrow is going to have another big day with his arm and lead this team to victory at home, especially. Now, for this week and this week going forward, I'm going to introduce a new segment on Best Bets. It is going to be the last resort bet. So what this is so that, it gives you an option. If you were to throw money on this play, then you would pay for all your bets that you made for this week. So if you bet on those 3 bets that I just told you and threw $10 on each of those, this would give you that money back plus extra profit in your pocket. So who doesn't like that? So this bet is called the last resort bet. So what this is a parlay of 3 teams that I like this week, and it's kind of a boosted odds. Instead of just betting on each team individually, you parlay them, which means you take them all in one slate. They all have to win, and then if they all win, then you win a good amount of money. So in this case, if you were to throw $10 on this play, you would win $65.90, which is a pretty good amount. Now, the reason why I chose these 3 teams is because I didn't want to throw teams that I'm already betting on this week, because I do like the Bengals a lot, but I like the Seahawks in their matchup, I like the Buccaneers in their matchup, and I like the Browns because there's a lot at stake for the Seahawks and Buccaneers. We have playoff implications. Teams are very hungry when they're fighting for playoff spots. I think they can get it done. They're playing weaker opponents because Tampa Bay is going up against Carolina, who just lost J.C. Horn for the season. So I expect Mike Evans is going to have a big game. The Seahawks, they looked miserable in their last outing. I think everyone's overreacting to that because they played a tough KC team. And I think Kenneth Walker and DK Metcalf are going to bounce back this week, and this Seattle team's going to run all over this Raiders team. And then as far as Cleveland goes, I think they're the better team compared to the Commanders in this matchup. I think Cleveland, Deshaun Watson has looked pretty good in his stint so far as a Cleveland Brown. I think they're going to do some damage against this Cleveland team, who did get back Chase Young recently, but I don't think it's going to pay a difference because I think Nick Chubb's going to run all over this team. And then when they try to contain Nick Chubb, I think Deshaun Watson's going to have his day with Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones. So thank you all for tuning in to this segment of Best Bets. We hope you enjoyed this segment. Please let us know in the comments what you think and what we should do going forward, because we always appreciate the feedback. Now I'm going to turn it over to Matt for sweet and sour and for the final word.
Wow, thank you so much, Sam. You said we all appreciate the comments. I appreciate you. What a great segment. Now I know what to spend all my money on this week. All right, let's get into sweet and sour fantasy football, getting you ready for your fantasy football championship. If you didn't blow your load too early, let's get right into it. Number 3, sweet. Give me Evan Ingram on the Jacksonville Jaguars. This guy's been balling lately. I think a lot of people wrote him off after the Giants moved off from him. He had a couple bad years there. He came to Jacksonville. No one drafted him in their leagues this year, but everyone's always looking for tight ends. Tight ends are sometimes hard to come by. The last 3 out of 4 weeks, he's been balling. He's been having monster games. He gets a ton of targets. I think last week he had 13 targets. Trevor Lawrence loves him. The Jaguars are rolling. And if you were smart enough to pick him up, I would 100% play him this week in your championship unless you got a locked-in tight end like a Kelsey, a Kittle, even a Goddard. Evan Ingram, a great play for your championship. My number 3 sour is Cordero Patterson. Kind of an obvious one. A lot of people thought he might, have a second breakout season, kind of like he did last season. He started off the season, he had 2 out of the first 3 weeks, he had 20-point fantasy games. But what happened to him, he got hurt, and lately Tyler Algier has really taken over the Atlanta backfield. Cordero Patterson still gets some work, but he's very touchdown dependent. He hasn't been getting as much work lately. I would not play him going forward, especially if you have any other options. Cordero Patterson sour this week. My number 2 sweet this week, George Kittle. I think a lot of George Kittle owners they're so happy that it's finally paying off, because Kittle was probably drafted high. He was probably drafted as your 3rd tight end, maybe your 4th if you took Waller over him. And he'd been very inconsistent throughout the season. He'd been hurt, in and out, good week, bad week, kind of here and there. But everyone always knew the ceiling was there. George Kittle's an elite tight end. He's been one of the best tight ends in the league for a while now. And it's been paying off the past 2 weeks. He's had 20-plus points the past 2 fantasy weeks. And if he's your tight end in a championship, you're looking like a genius. Brock Purdy likes him a lot. A lot of checkdowns to him. Gets a lot of work in the red zone. George Kittle, sweet this week heading into your fantasy championship. My number 2 sour is Isaiah Pacheco. He had a little bit of a run there in Kansas City. When they benched Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Pacheco kind of took over for a little bit, and he was getting a lot of goal line work. Well, Pacheco's worst nightmare has been Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon has run away with the Kansas City backfield the past 3-4 weeks. He's had multiple 30-point games. And what sucks for Pacheco owners is that McKinnon gets all the third down, all the passing work. Pacheco really doesn't catch a lot of passes. He'll catch 1, maybe 2 passes a game. His work's been in the red zone. But KC, they throw in the red zone more than any other team. Kelsey gets a lot of looks. Mahomes will scramble to do these weird kind of lateral reverse plays. Even McKinnon's been getting red zone work. If you have any other options, I would not play Pacheco in your fantasy championship. And my number 1 sweet this week is CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb was drafted, depending on how big your league is, wide receiver 1, maybe if you're a small league, wide receiver 2. There were a lot of high expectations for him this year with Amari Cooper going to Cleveland. And people, I think, were a little disappointing early on in the season. He was doing fine. He was doing good. You were playing him, but he wasn't going off like a lot of people thought he would. Since Dak has come back from injury, CeeDee Lamb has been going off. He's had multiple monster games. And Dallas, they play in a dome. Dak Prescott usually airs it out. He's been eating lately. He's had multiple touchdown games. And he's finally going off at the right time for fantasy members. CeeDee Lamb, you should feel great about playing him going into your fantasy championship. My number 1 sour, Zonovan Knight. My cousin Alex, he was fucking stupid enough to actually play Zonovan Knight in a fantasy play. He's a fucking moron, this kid Alex. No one is more insecure about the fantasy team than this kid Alex. He's a joke, and I'm embarrassed to call him a relative. But he played Zonovan Knight, and he luckily squeaked out a win because he was playing another incompetent owner in Joe Ward. Zonovan Knight, he had 2 terrible games. It seems like Michael Carter has taken over the Jets' backfield. They're splitting more work. He had a little bit of a run there, 3 straight games where he got some work. The Jets are 2, their offense, you don't know what you're going to get. Mike White, Zach Wilson, Michael Carter, Zonovan Knight. You don't know what you're going to get. The only guy I would play from that offense is Garrett Wilson. Even he had a bad game last week. Frankly, it was because Zach Wilson played. Don't play Zonovan Knight. Play anyone else. Please, don't be like Alex. Have a fucking brain. Don't play Knight. And that's all we got this week from Sideline. Remember to subscribe, leave a comment. Hope everyone had a nice holiday. And remember, send the link to your friends, to your family. Remind them. This will drop 8 p.m. Monday night. Movie Mob, Friday night, 6 p.m. Have a good week.